Welcome to the Black Conservative Voice of David Colbert here on the CTM News Network, the voice of truth. You know, as I watch the happenings more and more on our mainstream media and the news media, I'm convinced that the American people should have a right to elect the Speaker of the House, regardless of party rule and the party rule, whoever's in charge. I believe it should be the person who has been most responsive in the care for the taxpayers' dollars. And unfortunately, here in this country, they keep electing this crazy woman named Nancy Pelosi who keeps screwing around with our money. With a regular like Nancy Pelosi, she is the last person, period, we need running the House of Representatives. But of course, we see once again the Dems have put her in control of the great House of Representatives. But I refer to it that like that sometime because it's that's the way the letters is HOR. But anyway, no. But let's move on. Here we go again, gearing up for more capital punishment for the American people under Nancy Pelosi. That is exactly what we'll get, as she's shown us in the past. Even when she was in the Obama administration, Obama didn't even like her because she constantly stirred up issues in the House of Representatives, not accomplishing anything, pretty much, but wasting taxpayers' money, holding hearings over and over and over again. And we got a lot of Americans have turned it off because it's like, why are we even bothered? Because they're going to waste our money, they're going to cause problems anyway. But we thank God for President Trump, who came in for 4 years, and I believe and I'm hoping that we will resolve these issues because there's clear evidence there were irregularities in this past election. Clear evidence. There's no way, I don't know about you, but in the past in this country, whenever a president has done as much as Donald J. Trump has done, they get reelected. Unless somebody does a little slipping in the numbers. Unfortunately, that's what we've seen that's going on. And hopefully, as it unfolds, we'll see more. But what I'm hoping for is that the mainstream media and the DOJ will honor these things and get this mess straightened out, because Donald J. Trump did win by a landslide. But of course, we're gonna have to fight. If we fight and it doesn't work out, and I guess we'll just have to deal with the situations here. But this is David Colbert on the Black Conservative Voice. We'll be right back with you in a moment. We have a special guest, so stick around.
It's hard to believe that my opponents have been in office for 63 years. I've spent my life learning how to deal with large, complex situations like I found at Reebok and Dollar General. If these politicians had any understanding of the free enterprise system and knew how to make a difference, wouldn't they have done it already? Help me change the childish behavior up there. If we want different results in Washington, we have to send a different type of person to Washington. I'm David Perdue, and I approve this message.
Welcome back. You're watching the Black Conservative Voice with David Colbert here on the CTM News Network. We have a special guest today. We have Miss Arshi Ayub Mohamed. She is the CEO and Senior Advisor to the Royal Family Offices in the United Arab Emirates. She is obviously a very powerful leader there in that country, and I'm really, it's really a pleasure to have you, Arshi. We want to welcome you here to America. This is where we're seeing you at here.
Thank you, David. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Well, before I get into the questioning, I was listening to the leaders as they signed the Abraham Accord a few, I guess, a couple of months ago, and they were talking how our president, President Donald J. Trump, had a lot to do with the organizing of it all. But of course, Israel and the UAE and Israel were the founders, and they pulled it all together. But our president also helped to get things worked in and worked out. I've told people a lot of times before to get Donald Trump's book, The Art of the Deal, because he has helped this country in so many ways. Matter of fact, I really believe that we're going to see a lot more from Donald J. Trump, regardless of whether he get back in the presidency or not. But I have a few questions I would like to ask you in regard to the Abraham Accords. One of the first things I wanted to ask you, Archie, is how is the accord progressing, and what do you perceive to be the immediate benefits to the UAE?
Thank you, David. It's a pleasure to be here with you today and
Yeah.
all of us together. Thank you very much. I think, firstly, the Abraham Accords are a landmark opportunity for both Israel and the UAE to reinstate peace, prosperity, and security in the region. I think it has been instrumental in reinstating all these prime factors back to the Arab countries. Definitely, it is a natural extension of the UAE's goal to deepen strategic and economic ties with all these significant powers. I think the UAE has been expanding cooperation in security with Israel in areas of cybersecurity and cyber intelligence. And presently, Israeli businessmen have been actively engaged to explore trade opportunities in spyware, drones, cybersecurity technology to the UAE. Fortunately, I've been privy to a lot of discussions which have been relating to explore joint tourism and infrastructure projects within the nations. And I think the recent agreement with the UAE's Mohammed bin Zayed University of Artificial Intelligence and the Israel Swissman Institute of Science to collaborate on the development and use of AI is an important first step. Definitely, it offers opportunities to explore science diplomacy and dialogue, from which people may find common ground and form new shared moral understandings. I think it really demonstrates that both countries are committed to peace. And I think here the United States has played a very instrumental role in getting all of this together and sort of really putting things together for both the nations to explore and get all of the initiatives that we collectively believe in as nations back to the front. So I think this is a great historic and landmark moment for both the
Yes.
nations, and I think great things can be achieved moving forward.
Well, I absolutely agree with you. There was something I want to. Well, one thing I want to say that was very well articulated, but there's something that I wanted to point out. A lot of people don't realize this. We get a lot of our higher skills and higher math learning and stuff like that. Because I was listening to what you were talking about, artificial intelligence. The Arab nation, the Arab people are very intelligent, especially in the lines of math and technological development. A lot of people don't know that we get a lot of our math and the things that we do from the Arab nations, from the Arab people. This is a very important thing, and man, I wish I was as good as math as a lot of the people there are. But in history proves that that is an actual fact, and I believe that we have in connection here three of the most powerful people in the history of our world: the Arabs, the Israelis, and the U.S., the United States of America, and which is a melting pot of everybody, pretty much. But let me ask you another question: has the accord improved relationships with Israel, others, and others moving towards improvement overall relations between UAE countries in the area?
Well, I think there's plenty of opportunities for substantive change for most nations today, and really today is the real time for most of it. From a combative political atmosphere, new positive thinking has emerged, and collectively we have to be thankful to the leadership of Zionist Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan,
Yeah.
our Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi and the Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces, for his
Yes.
vision for creating a peaceful environment where one can coexist and real connections can be fostered, where really which is based on the shared belief of the unity of God found both in Judaism and Islam. So I think the vision for peace and settlement is good, but taking practical steps towards it is the only way to materialize it in reality. And I think UAE and Israel as nations are committed to commence the partnership of prosperity and real development that should really transform the lives of so many people in the region, especially
Yes.
in the extended Arab nations and, of course, the Western world, for our younger generations to collectively foster the power of science, technology, and innovation. For
Yes.
most countries that are collaborating on this front, I think the UAE, much before I think the founding of the country in 1971, the society, UAE society, is encouraged to believe in tolerance and inclusion specifically. This is a home to a
Yes.
diverse population of 200 nationalities and practitioners of numerous faiths that who live and actually worship side by side. This is because
Yes.
this nation has a different kind of a vision for its people. I think a kind of a vision which is forward looking, a future oriented model which really supports moderate Islam, empowers women, supports diversity, encourages
Yes.
innovation, and of course, really welcomes global engagement. And I think that is also one of the reasons that the country is favored by so many nations in not just the Arab world, but in the entire subcontinent. More
Yes.
specifically, also with the relationship that it shares with the United States and also other countries in the Western world. So I think this agreement and the relationship is really going to create and path new ways for more and more countries to come together and be a part of this historic moment. And I think slowly and steadily nations will understand the value of reinstating and getting peace and prosperity, real prosperity for their generations to come. So we
Yes.
will see change, and I think the country has been very, very forward looking in terms of making real change. And
Yes.
fortunately, we are happy that it's happening now.
Well, see, and we're here in America are very happy too. Um, there's a lot of good things on the horizon for the UAE and all the nations in the Middle East, according to what I've heard. I've been hearing a few other areas like Morocco and a few others have joined in also into inclusion in the Arab, the Arab Accords, or not Arab Accords. I'm sorry, the Abraham Accords. Um, I want to ask you another question, then we're going to take a break. Has the UAE been approached by any other Arab nations seeking inclusion into the accord?
Well, I think, as we are all aware, the peace agreement between Israel and the UAE was simultaneously shared also by Bahrain, and that is another important milestone in the Arab world. I think the nations have already initiated an exchange of ambassadors and embassy, and for the first time, they cooperate within
Yeah.
health, technology, agriculture, and other areas. I think opening a direct dialogue and ties between these two dynamic societies and advanced economies shall really continue to contribute to the positive transformation that takes place in the Middle East, and really that will inspire most nations to come forward and be a part of this entire initiative that really shall again get stability and real progression back to the table. We're yet to really witness a comprehensive approach to peace in the Middle East, but for the UAE and Israel, this is a remarkable opportunity to add to
Yes.
each other's diverse perspectives, knowledge, expertise, and resources to their domestic ingenuity. And I think one of the things that we can collectively be a part of is really advancing this cause together with most nations, most people, and our friends and families from across the borders, because this is how we will really be able to foster the generation with having peace and coherence back to our minds and ourselves, because this is how we can really advance as a generation. And that is where the focus, I think, of the Emirates is, and that's what we take great pride as a nation.
All right. Thank you very much. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back with you in a moment here on the Black Conservative Voice with David Colbert.
Did you know Kelly Loeffler was ranked the most conservative senator in America?
Yep, she's more conservative than Attila the Hun.
Fight China. Got it. Attack big government.
Yeah. Eliminate the liberal scribes.
More conservative than Attila the Hun.
Uh-oh.
Kelly Loeffler, 100% Trump voting record.
I'm Kelly Loeffler. I approve this message.
Meet Raphael Warnock. He wants you to know he eats pizza with a fork and a knife. He once stepped on a crack in the sidewalk. But Georgians don't care about that. Georgians care that Raphael Warnock was a proud defender of anti-American, anti-Semitic pastor Jeremiah Wright, who suggested America deserved the 9/11 terrorist attacks.
Not God bless America, God damn America!
We celebrate Reverend Wright.
Warnock said law enforcement officers are gangsters and thugs and a danger to children. He's anti-Israel, anti-Second Amendment, sympathizes with Marxists and socialists, and wants to make your neighborhoods less safe. Don't let him fool you with pizza and puppies. Raphael Warnock is too extreme for Georgia.
Welcome back. You're watching the Black Conservative Voice with David Colbert here on the CTM News Network, the voice of truth. And before we took a break there, we were talking about the inclusion, not an inclusion. Yeah, we were talking about inclusion of the different countries. I believe that our president, President Trump's, his main purpose, and I think he probably even spoke of it, maybe at a time, is to try to prosper other nations other than us, other people, our peoples across the world, to help them to generate and make better economies and things like that, have people working together so that we can enjoy the countries like the United Arab Emirates, different countries over there without any feeling threats and stuff because of unrest. I would love to come to United Arab Emirates. I've heard of it, but I've never been there before. But I've heard it's a beautiful place. I've never been there. I have friends who actually work there in the United Arab Emirates from Pakistan, but that's from what I hear. If you can you get a chance, if you can email me some or either send me some photos and pictures and stuff of the area there, because I haven't really been there, and I haven't seen a lot of media from that area. But let's move on. Is communications going well between the UAE and Israel and the founders of this historic agreement? Is everything working together well?
I think everything is going pretty good, David. I think the fact that we are experiencing a massive mindset change in the two nations, that is one that is getting to know each other, respecting one another, our ideas, but also our differences. I think communication among the leaders is going pretty good, and a larger testament to that is that Israel will set up their embassy this month in Abu Dhabi for diplomats to engage and further cement our ties. And corresponding UAE also is setting up their embassy back in Tel Aviv. Direct flights have begun back and forth to both the nations to foster easier dialogue and create much newer relationships. So many large conglomerates have come forward and started to develop their trade and investment offices and licenses in both parts of the nations. Recently, the UAE and Israel signed a football cooperation agreement as a continuum of UAE's Football Association efforts to strengthen relationships with various football federations across the world. Bank-Leumi signing memorandum with the First Abu Dhabi Bank and the National Bank of Dubai will be another financial milestone for both the nations in this specific industry. I think the UAE and Israel and the US announcing the establishment of a joint regional development fund, which is named as the Abraham Fund based in Jerusalem, will be providing private funding for the development of initiatives to promote regional economic cooperation and prosperity in the Middle East. So these kind of initiatives really speak volumes about the relationship that both the nations have begun. And I think when we really join forces together, the sky is the limit, and greater things can really happen. This is just the beginning, and we're at a very nascent stage where the relationship is being explored, and so much is already being done. And we're just all we've just started, and I think so many good things could be done in so many different sectors. So we're really optimistic, and we're looking forward to getting to know each other better and understanding each other better, because in the Arab world, let me tell you, the most important thing about doing any kind of business is getting to know each other's cultures. And I think the first step towards that is getting to know one another and respecting one another, irrespective of how we are. We have to respect one another. And I think that is really the premise of this entire initiative, which is to respect one another, get to know one another, and really be open to each other. So I think the communication and the relationship has begun on a very good note, and we are hopeful that it remains good, and it only gets better from here.
Yes, I do too very well, and I'm just excited to be living the time as this through all the years and my getting older. I've seen a lot of conflicts, but I'm glad that things are working out with actually I descended from the Jewish people. That is I descended out of a tribe out of Africa called the Karari Jews. That's my descendancy, and so my heart is close to the people there. Um, but this has been a really educational opportunity to RC to sit down and hear from your perspective what you're seeing going on there in the UAE and the Arab nations and Israel and all that on the Middle East. Um, I I'm excited. I didn't really know a lot about the Abraham Accord. I bring you here today so you can help me and my viewers to understand it better. Well, I'm going to ask you one final question, and we're going to go ahead and get to that right now. It says, do you or the UAE expect new opportunities to arise out of the Abraham Accord, creating benefits yet to be realized from those nations joining the agreement as it expands?
Well, certainly, I think the Abraham Accords really express and highlight the stated desire of the two countries to cooperate in a number of different domains: finance and investments, in civil aviation, in visas and immigration, trade and economic relations, healthcare, water security, legal cooperation, energy, protection and environment, tourism, culture, and sport has already begun. We're already cooperating on COVID, on technology, on innovation. And I think UAE is such a natural jurisdiction for so many Israeli businesses wishing to expand and their business regionally and internationally in a tax-efficient manner to set up a local presence. In this respect, I think the UAE and Israel also have reached to a preliminary agreement on a treaty to avoid double taxation as a catalyst to encourage really investments on between these two countries. And I think such tax treaties help prevent similar taxes being imposed by two countries on the same taxpayer. So we really see a surge in the number of UAE and Israeli companies taking advantage of the opportunities that the treaties allow them, including cross-border joint ventures, funds in either countries, and diversifying their investor base, and really the expansion of their businesses into a previously unavailable jurisdiction. So I think the opportunity is tremendous, and I'm really looking forward to collaborate and find common grounds with so many Israeli companies. On my individual side, I've really had the pleasure to get to know some of the businessmen who have already come to the UAE and started to explore in so many different sectors alongside our group companies. So we are really looking forward to collaborating for a very sustainable vision, because this is not short term. This we are looking at a very sustainable standpoint, and that is our vision, which is to really have these relationships long term and also inspire other nations to look at it that way, because really this country stands for peace, for stability, and for real progression, which will only come if we work together. So I think
Yes.
this is our way. This is the way this country has always been, and this is the vision that we carry of His Highness Sheikh, late Sheikh Zayed, the founding father of the UAE. And this is the legacy that I think the UAE wants to leave behind. A legacy which is really built on hope, on real peace and prosperity for everybody involved, not just the Arab world, but the world at large. And I think this Abraham Accord really is such one of those initiatives in the many that the UAE has been trying to do for many of its people, the residents, and also the younger generations who aspire to be in a better world, I think. And that's we are
Yes.
fortunate to be living in a
Most
time
definitely.
where we are able to do that.
Yes. Well, I really appreciate you, Arshi, coming to join us here. For those of you just checking in, this is Arshi Ayub Mohamed. She is the CEO, Senior Advisor to the Royal Family Offices of the UAE. And once again, I want to thank you for joining us, taking your time. And it's been a pleasure speaking with you. It's been a pleasure. And hopefully you'll come back and join us again soon as things progress forward so that we can continue to discuss these situations that are moving forward in the that Abraham Accord and how things are progressing forward. If you would commit to that, that would be good. I'd love to have you back.
Thank you, David. Always happy to be back. Thank you very much.
Okay. Well, we're going to take a short break, and we'll be back here with you on the Black Conservative Voice with David Colbert in a few. Welcome back. You're watching the Black Conservative Voice with David Colbert here on the CTM News Network, the voice of truth. Once again, we want to thank our special guest. She's moved on right now, but our special guest who was our Arshi Ayub Mohamed. She's the CEO and Senior Advisor to the Royal Family Offices in the United Arab Emirates. We will, in days coming forward, we'll have some other people involved in the Abraham Accords, which some from Jerusalem and some from some other nations that are going to be talking about what their plans are and in this organization, or this grouping that President Donald J. Trump has pulled together by working with the United Arab Emirates and Jerusalem. Thank God for our president, President Donald J. Trump. Well, as we can see, AOC is busy again. She got out recently and she said that if the Senate is taken control of, these people, you in Georgia, you need to get out and vote for Loeffler and Perdue, because she said if the Democrats get control of the Senate, they will not negotiate anything with the GOP. That is her actual statement, and that is her attitude and pretty much the overall attitude of the Democrat Party. Now, in another portion of the news, Nancy Pelosi, the hair lady, the one who's going out and dressing up and getting her hair done at the salon there in California, once again has violated their own curfews and their own setups. She allowed a member of Congress to come all the way from California, a Democrat from Wisconsin, Representative Win Moore, after she had tested positive for COVID-19, to vote Nancy Pelosi back into the House seat, Speaker's seat. What did I tell you before? Nancy Pelosi does not care about anybody else but Nancy Pelosi. Now, she put at risk everybody in the congressional chamber. These people walked back in there, people. They walked back in to the chamber with a woman who had been diagnosed already with COVID-19. And nobody knows exactly how it spreads. So Pelosi appeared also after this event to be amplifying coronavirus concerns as she was sworn in as House Speaker once again. Well, Representative Lauren Boebert tweeted shortly after that, according to Speaker Pelosi, healthy Americans must wear masks, close their small businesses, and stay home at all times. But Democrats who test positive for COVID-19 can travel to D.C., vote on the House floor, and is deemed essential just to keep Nancy Pelosi in power. Boy, what foolishness. Now we see how Nancy Pelosi does. She does not care about the American people and doesn't care about anybody pretty much. So I'm going to tell you something. Now, I don't go into the history, but I sat under a gentleman by the name of D'Alessandro, Mayor D'Alessandro. The first Mayor D'Alessandro was Nancy Pelosi's father. And the second D'Alessandro was her brother. And you remember a lady by the name of Kim Klacik when she was running for Congress there in Baltimore, Maryland, where I came from, and she told you about the corrupt systems? Well, over those 50 years, these people who are Nancy Pelosi's family also helped to continue to corrupt and the demise of Baltimore City, which has gone from 3 million to about 600,000 people. The people have left in droves because it's not a good place for people who want to live and want to they want to go on with their life. I don't want me to speak out against Baltimore because that's where I grew up. But the Democrats has went in there and have ruined my hometown. Another piece of news, we'll give you this and then we'll go ahead and get out of your way. The Rose Parade, which has gone on for, I don't know how many years, 50 years, something like that, was actually canceled in California. But there's a new parade. The Patriot Rose Parade took place after Governor Newsom passed this another shutdown order. And this is why they don't like Trump supporters, because the Trump supporters got out and we had a parade anyway in California, even though they said shut down. But my advice to, and I'm not calling anybody to do anything, but my advice is to Governor Newsom, duck, because you better watch out. I told you before, you can't mess with human nature, Governor Newsom. People will take but so much, and after a while, they're going to turn on you. And when they turn on you, and you try to stay in there, look out. And I say duck because you had your people in the BLM and Antifa throwing bottles and throwing bombs at police officers and what do you call them, Molotov cocktails, throwing bricks in the window. So watch out. You better duck. Okay, let's move on. This is the last piece of news for you. The World Economic Forum says that the pandemic, and we all knew this before, when Bill Gates got up and put out of his big mouth back in the 80s, talking about what if a pandemic or something happened? What would we do? Well, here's what the World Economic Forum suggests. They say that this is a unique opportunity to implement the Great Reset of capitalism. They want to reset capitalism so they can destroy your life. That is why they are trying to push, the Democrat socialists are trying to push socialism in this country. They want to destroy capitalism. It's pure foolishness. Most people in this world come here to this country for that very reason, free enterprise, not to be shut up by a controlling Democrat Party, people who will take control of the Senate. And I'm telling you, people in Georgia, you better get out and vote in droves. And I know about 3 million people have already voted. But we need to vote for David Perdue, and we need to vote for Kelly Loeffler so we can get that control of the Senate and get an extra vote, because all we really need is one vote to gain control, but we need to get as much leadway as we can. But I want to thank you for joining us here on the Black Conservative Voice once again. And I want to also thank Arshi for joining us here from the United Arab Emirates. It was really a pleasure meeting her, and we hope to have her back with us again as the Abraham Accord progresses and moves forward in the coming days and year ahead. Well, once again, I want to thank you for joining us here on the Black Conservative Voice, here on the CTM News Network. My name is David Colbert, and I want to say what I always like to say to you. God bless you, God bless America, and God bless the world. Until next time, this is David Colbert on the CTM News Network, the voice of truth, saying good night and God bless.